What is the cost of silence to your relationship, to your sexual health, to your intimacy? Well, welcome back to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. I am Dr. Anna Cabeca, your host, and as always, appreciate you being here. This is a place where we talk about women's health, all things hormones, intimacy, and the things that make life vibrant and worth living, right? Especially in midlife. So today I am super excited to welcome a truly inspiring guest, Gabriella Espinosa. She is a women's health and sexual wellness coach, menopause advocate, and host of the Pleasure in the Pause podcast, a beautiful space empowering midlife women to reconnect with their bodies, pleasure, and power through menopause. She's a board member of Let's Talk Menopause. And also today we are diving deep into a topic that affects every woman, but is often left unspoken. And this is the cost of silence to your sexual health. We will explore how science around sexual health changes in midlife and impacts women's well being. I know from being a gynecologist and working with women in this space, it's often a prompt I have to ask because women don't feel comfortable just bringing this up and sharing it. And I want to empower you to do that today and also empower you to support your journey authentically in this space. So, welcome to the Girlfriend Doctor Show and join me in welcoming Gabriella to the show. Well, welcome, Gabriella, to the Girlfriend Doctor Show. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anna, for having me on. So excited about our conversation.
I am super excited too because this is so for my audience. I met Gabriella at an event, but I've been following her on Instagram as one of the voices, authentic voices, in really helping us resolve the silence around our sexuality, especially in midlife. So I was really thrilled to meet you in person, and I've been on your podcast, and now grateful to have you share your story. And what prompted you, with your history and everything that you have done up through this point in your life, what really prompted you to share this message?
Well, when I entered perimenopause, I thought I was pretty well educated. I'd read every book about periods, pregnancy, parenting, but when it came to perimenopause or menopause and sexual health, I was completely in the dark. I had the typical symptoms, heart palpitations, anxiety, skip periods, had no idea that was perimenopause. But the symptom that hit me the hardest was the loss of desire. My libido plummeted. It was like someone switched the light off. My doctor told me I didn't talk to my doctor about my libido in particular, but about these other symptoms I was experiencing. He told me I was just a stressed out mom of three, prescribed the beta blockers, the antidepressants. I was trying all the things, yoga, breath work, acupuncture, but none of it touched what I was missing. And that was this connection to my sexual self. Was longing for a version of myself when I entered my, beautiful relationship with my husband. But I had, the hardest part was I had no language for what was happening, no words to describe um, what I was feeling, not to my partner, not to myself, much less to my doctor. So it did feel like the light switch to my libido was totally switched off and I was left in the dark. And that silence, that lack of language, became the starting point of my own personal journey of sexual awakening and what led me to become a women's health coach, a sexual wellness coach, a menopause advocate, and really do all the work that I'm currently doing. I started a podcast, Pleasure in the Pause, to have these conversations around female sexuality and sexual health. I became a menopause advocate. I joined the board of a national nonprofit called Let's Talk Menopause, again, to advocate and educate women around this life stage. And most recently, I've become the executive producer of a documentary called Hot, which takes a bold and funny look at midlife sexuality, the changes that we go through as we move through perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. So I'm really proud of this mission that I'm on of unsilencing,
Yeah.
right? These very core aspects of ourselves.
And I like that it's the unsilencing because it has been very much a silenced area. And it's definitely something, as a gynecologist, I know that when talking about sexual function, specifically intimacy and desire, it's often these questions need to be prompted. You know, as a gynecologist, it's rare that someone just starts out with, this is my issue. It's usually my responsibility to create a soft space and ask the questions in a non-judgmented space. And what I've learned so much is that when it comes to this intimacy and area, it's usually issues of desire, disconnect, or discomfort. Those are the 3 Ds that I'm like, okay, let's address these 3 things first, and then we'll go from there. There's so much to it. Now, you wrote the Midlife Private Parts Anthology. It was your way of unsilencing your story and bringing it out publicly. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so I have an essay in this book. It was actually a personal memoir essay in this book called Midlife Private Parts, which is an anthology of essays by midlife women. And my essay is about pleasure. It's called Midlife Awakening, Finding My Way Back to Pleasure. And it's really my personal story, my journey of self discovery, right? Like most women, um, or like many women probably in our generation, I grew up in a family where sex wasn't talked about. The only talk I ever got came from my very Catholic grandmother who warned me, your body is a temple. Don't let anyone in. I got that message clear. Okay.
Wait, temples are supposed to be, like I say, cathedrals are supposed to be worshipped. Yes,
Yes, exactly. But don't let anyone in. And that meant like just don't engage in any kind of,
closed off. Hmm.
sex. I chose to ignore that warning for a few decades. Pleasure and sexuality was a very big part of my identity as a young woman. It made me feel alive, free, connected to my body. But somewhere between being a young woman and then entering motherhood, the endless to-do list, the fatigue, the overwhelm, I lost that connection. And then came perimenopause. And as I explained, it was like someone turned the light off and I felt so numb, disconnected, and really thought, is this the end? Am I getting old? Um, I was so ashamed. And again, I didn't have the language or knowledge to understand what was happening to me. Um, but somewhere deep inside, there was a little whisper, this isn't the end. This is the beginning. So I began a journey, a self discovery, a slow, intimate process of getting to know myself again. I was very lucky to find a mentor, a woman, a coach who was an expert in female embodiment and female sexuality, who was my guide. I started with getting to know myself. I didn't know at age in my 40s the names and parts to all my sexual anatomy. I didn't know. I know that there were certain parts that gave me pleasure, but I didn't know that was the clitoris. I didn't know that that was the main organ of pleasure and that that part needed to be stimulated in order for me to feel aroused and allow for a yes to be penetrated. I bypassed that oftentimes because I had no idea, right? So I got to know my sexual anatomy. I got to figure out what parts of my sexuality really gave me pleasure. Um, and it was really about entering this relationship with myself through self pleasure, not as a quick fix, but really as an act of self love, as an act. I think my grandmother was right. My body is a temple. And so entering that act as an act of devotion to my body. So I befriended the most intimate parts of myself. I learned what I liked, what I didn't like, and I found my way back to pleasure and then invited my husband along on that journey with me. So yeah, my grandmother was right. My body is a temple. I do get to worship through self-devotion, but I get to make the choices of who and when I invite to join me there. But I realized also from this journey that it wasn't really the hottest tips, tricks, or toys that would help me reclaim my sexual self. But it was really about getting to know myself intimately and um, peeling back layers of shame, uncovering stories that said maybe I wasn't worthy of pleasure, speaking up for myself and establishing clear boundaries and consent. And I discovered that midlife isn't the end. It isn't the end of pleasure. It's really a new, exciting chapter.
Well, I think it's so important, right? Like the discovering the erogenous zones, being able to speak what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy. It's, thinking about a patient that had come to me in my practice and she had said, Dr. A, I just have no desire. And she says, and I always ask, okay, you may have not initial desire, but are you okay once you get started? That's asking about secondary desire, right? She goes, yes, until he starts playing with my breast and nipples, I just don't like it. She's like, been married to this man for 15 years. And I said, well, what does he say when you tell him that? And she goes, oh, I wouldn't tell him because he enjoys it. And it's like, wait. He is like, biggest turn on for a guy is your pleasure. If you're not having pleasure, just speak it. There's something else that will turn him on even more because it turns you on more. And so understanding that uniqueness, right? That individuality, and that it's about your pleasure. Now, how did you come into that understanding?
Well, it was a slow process and it took a lot of vulnerability. It took a lot of vulnerability. It took a lot of courage. Uh, I realized that my husband wasn't a mind reader. I couldn't expect for him to know what gave me
I have
pleasure.
yet to find the male mind reader, right? I've yet to find the male mind reader. So yes, because you
Yeah,
can wish it as much as you want in your head, like
yeah.
please just move over to the right a little bit. Just speak the truth.
So it starts with communicating what you like, literally guiding your partner to those places that feel good to you. Really tuning into, going back to your patient story, tuning into what does your yes feel like? What does your no feel like? If we really tune in and listen to our bodies, and I teach women about how to tap into sensation, how to tap into bodily awareness, how to tap into intuition. So you can listen for that yes. So you can listen for yes, I'm ready. You should be able to tell your partner, like you should be like ready. Yes, 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 I'm ready. Come in. Do when you're if you want to go towards penetration, right? But if you want to be guided and slowly build up that slow, beautiful arousal, it takes up to 25, 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes for women. So hang out in that space. Hang out in that space. It takes patience, it takes presence, it takes bodily awareness, as I said, and it takes courage, communication, and curiosity and vulnerability, all those things that we probably weren't taught to explore because maybe when we were younger, it happened a little bit more easily. It was quick and fast and spontaneous. And then all of a sudden we hit midlife and we realize we need more of that responsive desire. We need that slow build of arousal. And that takes self exploration. It takes you discovering what lights you up. And so I share with women several practices of self exploration through self touch, through uh, tapping into sensation, sensate awareness, which is a mindfulness practice that you can either do by yourself on yourself, noticing what sensations arrive when you touch certain parts of your body. You can do it with a partner. You can do it fully clothed, right? It's an exchange of touch exercises and it's an exchange of touch and sharing touch and noticing what arises, what feels good. And it really takes awareness and presence, but you have to slow down, prioritize pleasure, take everything off your to-do list, turn off all the phones, and create a beautiful space and block of time where you can tune into that. I think so many of us are so busy and don't really create that quality time. And what I find when you create that quality time, it's quality time, and maybe it's just one session a week or one session a month, but it's so quality and so presence filled and so um, such a beautiful intimate sharing that you realize that's enough. And you can do this either for yourself or with a partner. I often tell women that um, that sexual spark, that sexual desire does, it does diminish. It is part of our biology. There are ways to wake it up again if you want to go there, right? If you don't, if you're fine with it, if you're fine with it, then not having um, that desire, that raging libido, it's fine. If it's okay, right? But if you really are missing it, if you want to bring it back into your relationship, if you want to create that spark of aliveness, vitality, and aliveness, then there are ways that you can do it very simply in non-sexual ways, waking up those erogenous zones through touch. And then through self-exploration, through self-pleasure, you can introduce beautiful products like the ones you have. I love Jelva. I have to do a pitch for Jelva because that's how I discovered you, right? And I find Jelva is a beautiful way to start. It adds that sense of connection to my body. I know I'm adding something nourishing to my vulva. I notice a little tingling sensation, and so I sit with that even by myself. What is this sensation that I'm all of a sudden feeling around my vulva, and just allow myself to really indulge in that. And then communication. Wow, I feel something here. Where can I touch? Where can I guide my partner to touch? And then take it from there.
I think it's so important. I want to talk about these things because, like in my, like when I lecture too on vaginal health, sexual health, and intimacy, I was like the 3 Ds that affect our intimacy, right? And dick is not one of them, but it is issues of desire, disconnect, and discomfort. Those are the three. And the 3 Ps that we engage in actually work to increase our intimacy. And no, penis is not one of them, right? So like outside the box, it is that pleasure. What gives us pleasure in and outside the bedroom? In our life, what brings us pleasure, and having awareness of that is that turn on, is that piece to attract more oxytocin into our life. And the second you've mentioned is presence, right? Is the being present, sensate, focus, being present, especially during intimacy, because we have mirror neurons. And if we're like, oh, I don't want you to see this side, or that's uncomfortable, those are turn off signals versus turn on signals. So staying into your turn on, into your being present in your pleasure too, especially in intimacy. And the third P is play, again, in and outside, like creating that fun, creating that playfulness. And so many women realize, I want to talk about this anatomy piece, because you said you didn't even like understand the words of your anatomy. So those of you that are listening, at some point, what I am doing, I am holding on to my gynecologic pelvis right here with our pelvic floor anatomy, because I want to go over this with Gabriella too. I
Mhm.
want Gabriella to go over this with us in a language that really helps us understand. And it's so important to understand this piece. So if you want to see what I'm doing, hop over to my YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed there, you will want to see this. So when we talk about this, the pelvic floor anatomy, the external anatomy, now this is anatomic, so we're not seeing the external labia, etc. But in understanding like these aspects of what do you find that women are most unaware of, and I can definitely give my input as a gynecologist too.
Well, I they don't even know the names of
Right.
the parts, the vulva, right? They don't know they know perhaps they've heard of the vagina, the vaginal canal. The vaginal canal is internal. That's where babies come out if you've birthed, right? And they know probably
Yes.
maybe their uterus or the fallopian tubes. They know basic anatomy, but they don't know that the pleasure anatomy all exists on the outside. It's all on the outside, and that's where you start. So you have the clitoris, right, which is the little bulb, and then you have the hood of the clitoris.
Yeah, and here, this little yellow spot here. So the
Mhm.
clitoris, like sometimes slang, and this is I heard in as a gynecologist, I've heard all kind of slang, but little man in the boat, that's a very southern term. But once you hear that little man in the boat, you cannot not think that, right?
Mhm.
Like little man in the boat, on switch, pleasure point, money maker. I mean, all those things definitely heard.
And then the clitoris, right? You can't see this on the outside, but the structure of the clitoris, there is that bulb. If you looked internally, the clitoris, you have the clitoris, and it has legs called the crura, and it has
Please.
bulbs, right? All those. So it's not only that little bulb
Point,
there.
right?
The legs extend all the way down the outer labia, the inner labia, all the way down to the perineum, down even to the anus,
This is the
right?
perineum here, and then the anus here, right?
Mhm.
So clitoris to anus, and this is top to bottom.
Top
Most
to
important anatomy of our body. That's what I like to say. But
exactly.
you can see why the external genitalia is so important. And often, like we've called everything down here the vagina, but it's not, right? Like the vagina is the opening, but the vulvar vestibule is full of nerves and sensation and glands. That's why, that's one of the reasons I created Julva externally, because this is the area that will atrophy, and this is the area that gives us most pleasure. And if we're not treating this entire area and the opening, there's no penetration happening,
Mm,
whether it's self or partnered.
yeah.
So like
And what I
that's so
find, yeah,
important.
yeah, what I find also in my experience and when I talking to other women, I don't know if you find this, Dr. Cabeca, that the clitoris, right, can lose some sensitivity as you move in through to midlife. So a lot of women
Completely.
will go and maybe even their partners and just stimulate that little point of the clitoris, and oh, it feels a little bit sensitive and um, you know, not always as pleasant to the touch. So they give up, but you need to really stimulate the whole structure, not just. I usually like to start at the outer lips,
Outer lips,
inner lips,
absolutely.
the perineum. When I start there, then I go up to the clitoris because it's too sensitive for me just to go straight to the clitoris. I need to stimulate the other aspects, and then I start feeling that sense of engorgement, that sense of stimulation, and then I'm ready to be stimulated at the clit, and then I'm ready to be, if I want to be to be penetrated if I want, because that whole area is engorged. It's ready.
It's ready.
Ready. And that
And
takes time. It takes time.
it does, and it reminds me of the it reminds me of the saying that go down a water slide while it isn't wet, and then you will understand why foreplay is so important. So true. So true. And you have to take time and realize, but also pleasure points can change over time. And
Exactly.
erogenous zones are all over our body. So having that fun and play to explore the erogenous zones that are all over our body, that's powerful exploration.
And it's going to be different, as you said, now in midlife as than compared to what it was like when we were younger. But that's the excitement. That's the fun that we can create new neural pathways, and our bodies, our minds are always rewiring. And so it does take that sense of curiosity and play to explore. I mean, what I find exciting and arousing now, I had not even gone there when I was younger. So that's, I find that my whole pleasure landscape is so much more expansive now in midlife and postmenopausal than it was before.
Well, and it's so true. So when you're working in this space and women feel like I can't bring this up to my partner. How do you coach them through that? Like, oh, I feel uncomfortable saying, oh, well, I want to try this fantasy, or this doesn't feel good to me. Like, how do you coach them to really use to speak up for what they do like?
Yeah, no, that's such a great question. It starts with mindset, right? So really, we take a little bit of deep dive into some of the inherited narratives, social narratives, cultural narratives, religious narratives that we are holding. And we start there because we may not be aware that we're holding them, but we are. Case in point, when I wrote my essay for Midlife Private Parts and I started writing, it took me forever to write everything that I was holding on words and papers, and I start those narratives started coming back. Oh my gosh, people are going to read this, Gabriella. What are people going to say? That sentence, what are people going to say, was something that my mother used to say to me from from the moment I was a teenager. What are people going to say if you dress like that? What are people going to say if you're with that boy? Or that was a thing, and it came up, and so I had to sit with myself and say, Gabriella, okay, you are a 50 something year old woman. You can you're past that. Look at that narrative and revisit that, and talk to that younger person who was holding that narrative, and try and let's look at that and release the shame. So I had to talk to friends about it. I had to talk to my therapist about it. But and yeah, we're not aware of the shame that we hold around some of these beliefs and ideas of how worthy we are, how deserving we are to experience pleasure. So we go there first, right? Look at some of those narratives. I get women to really write down, journal, repeat to themselves, look at themselves in the mirror and say, what is it that gives me pleasure? What is it that I desire? Because most of the time, women have never been asked that question. What do you desire? We've been so focused on pleasing others, on focusing on other people's desires and pleasure. And so that is very vulnerable work, right? That is very vulnerable work. You and I have been in this space for a while, so we can talk about it a lot openly, but for many of us, it's very tender work. So we start there, really empowering women with a language. And that's what I love, journaling, um, to either through writing or speaking to themselves, what it is that they desire and what it is that they want to communicate to their partner. And then starting with just very simple uh, talking points. And I always like to tell women, don't start this conversation while you're being intimate or while you're in bed. Go for a walk. Do it. Going for a walk while you're with your partner outdoors is a great way to start this conversation. You can say, I was listening to these two women, Dr. Cabeca and Gabriella Espinosa, on this podcast, and I learned this. Or I've been journaling about my pleasure and my desire, something that I've never done. And this feels very vulnerable, but I'd love to share what I've discovered, right? What partner will not want to hear things that you're discovering that will benefit the two of you, right? That will benefit the two of you. And I find that most partners, their eyes light up when you start sharing. I discovered that when you touch me here, or when you say this to me, or when we when we get intimate in this part of the house, I feel this or I feel that. Or just start sharing what you are actually feeling. And I think partners are very open to your sense of curiosity and playfulness, and just vulnerability or courage to bring those things up.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. And so, do you help women see menopause not as an ending, but as an invitation to become their wisest, sexiest, and most empowered self?
Yeah, I love that question. We focus so much on the symptoms, right? And of course, there are symptoms. I'm not going to lie, it is a challenging time. We do experience a whole array of symptoms, but what we don't talk about enough are the gifts of menopause. So to know, when you intentionally address the symptoms through nutrition, lifestyle interventions, nutrition, exercise, stress management. Uh, you, when you intentionally address those symptoms through those lifestyle interventions, that you can experience the gifts that are awaiting for you on the other side. You're free of periods, right? You're free of that reproductive pressure, and there is this sense of freedom. Right? It's just this inherent sense of like, I'm free. I don't have to worry about those things anymore. You become more in touch with your inner voice, your intuition. You have a stronger sense of boundaries, your yes and your no. I know that women's bullshit meter becomes more heightened, and that feels good to finally be able to say yes or no, right? And yeah, you get to value your lived experience. We are wise women. We get to take a look back and say, I've done this with my life, I've learned this, I've done so many things, and how can I take this forward with me and be of value to my community, to my workplace, to my society, to my family, to my relationships. So there are gifts awaiting for you on the other side. And when you do this work of self exploration of what brings you pleasure, uh, in and out of the bedroom, yes, pleasure is a gift that you do get to experience on the other side. But it does take a little bit of work. It does take self exploration. It does take intention. And that's what I coach women through, to step into that space of intention and presence with themselves.
Yeah, and I love that. And I think too, one of the things that I've done recently to help me is like my boss woman's list, like my list of accomplishments, the things that we can celebrate, the things we celebrate in our life, to create that list, because looking at focusing on those things bring us even greater pleasure and accomplishments. But to see often can feel, and I know from working in the space, especially in menopause and postmenopause, is that feel really down on themselves. What have I accomplished to this point? Actually, let's look. Let's look and let's list that. List these things that you've accomplished in your life, the joys, the moments you've had, the celebrations you've had. Like, really list them out. And the list is long. The list is always a lot longer than you think. And that really helps change perspective. And I look at, we say, we have our periods of life from maiden to mother to, let's say, matriarch or magi, right? This is the magical time of our life that's really empowered with a higher level of clarity and spirituality in the healthy physical and energetic body, right? In the healthy physical and awakened energetic body. And this sexual awakening during this time can be very, very powerful. I hear from my community members all the time, like in their 60s, 70s. They're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that sex could be this good, or I could have this much pleasure. I could feel this way, this intimate, this connection. And just having there's a saying that we had at Emory University in our surgery department as gynecologists, is the eyes don't see what the mind don't know,
Mm,
right? The eyes don't see what the mind don't know. So once you hear it and you hear from other women, and you open yourself to the possibility, that is powerful, right? Then all of a sudden your mind knows it. And then you can see it, feel it, embody it. But I think it is this piece of um, having faith, number one, that things can get better, that we're not leading down a decrepit, frail trail. We are shifting that to matriarchal, magi, enchantress type of, like, for me, I want to live, the legacy I leave, like the inspiration that I have 4 daughters, the inspiration I can lead them into will decrease the trials and tribulations in their life,
mm,
at least, but increase the moments of true awe and wonder.
mm.
So I think that's true at any any stage.
And I see
Now,
it all around. I'm seeing it all around me, Dr. Cabeca. I mean, I'm seeing midlife women stepping into that realm of possibility. All the women who contributed to this book, Midlife Private Parts, they're stepping into their creative sides, writing essays. They're all doing amazing things, starting new businesses, pivoting and um, becoming writers, starting businesses, becoming coaches, becoming leaders in their communities. Um, it's not a dormant stage of life. We don't, we have I don't know how you feel about the grandmother hypotheses that, okay, we step into this phase of life to help our women, our daughters, or other women in our community raise their children. But we're much more than grandmothers. right? We have so much more, and nothing, no knocking grandmothers. I love
Hey,
my,
I'm a grandma.
your
Yeah.
grandmother, but look at what a hot grandma you are. Look at the role model you are being for your grandchildren, right? And so I think that we can step into it, into this next stage. Yeah, just sharing with our grandkids, with our daughters, with our sons, with all the people in our community that we are powerful, we are wise, and we are dynamic. We are sexy. We can totally redefine what a midlife woman, what a grandmother looks and looks like today.
Yeah, her role in society is expansive, right? And I
Exactly.
think that's the space that I certainly know that we both hold
Mm.
for women. And so, what is your advice to women who are listening? Who we have so much, like we have so much in common, Gabriella. So, in your way to encourage listeners to talk to their doctors if they need help, their partners, their girlfriends, to open up conversation. What's a good like icebreaker?
Mm. So I always say start with yourself, right? Start with yourself. So, really, I want everyone to know that your pleasure isn't lost. It may be buried under layers of stress, shame, or disconnection, but it's not gone. And the process of reconnecting with your pleasure is really the process of reconnecting with yourself. And that journey, yeah, it can be tender, it can be painful, but it can be so powerful and sacred. And you don't need to wait for the perfect body or the perfect partner or the perfect timing to begin. You just need the desire to say, yes, I want to discover who I am. I want to discover who I am in this stage of life. And so your body is there, still speaking to you, just waiting for you to listen. And so I love to begin with um, as I mentioned, journaling is a great part of that process, really exploring what is it that gives me pleasure? What is it that I desire? Um, how do I want to feel and explore my body in this stage of life? Share with women certain practices for regulating their nervous system so they create a sense of safety and presence in their body. Somatic awareness practices, movement based practices that I like to share. Uh, Vulva vitality and body literacy, really understanding and honoring your anatomy, get educated, and start with simple pleasure practices. I like to call them little pleasure snacks. Feeling the warmth of sun on your skin, self touch, uh, there's so many practices you can engage in. And then communicating, right? Learning to name your desires, speak your truth, and advocate for yourself. And knowing that the goal isn't about going back to some former version of yourself. It really is about who you are now, right now. And that's really, some of the tips and advice that I give women. But in terms of advocating for yourself, right? Speaking to your doctor, bringing up the conversation with your doctor. If they don't ask about your sexual health, you bring it up, right? Um, and talk to your partner, share what's changed and what you need. And most importantly, really speaking kindly to yourself about your changing body, right? Our bodies are meant to change. We are changing, but really speaking to yourself from this perspective of respect, self reverence.
Hmm.
So important. Our bodies have done so much for us. They've
Hmm.
carried us so far, and let's respect them. Let's treat them as the temples that they really are. My grandmother was
Totally
right.
true. So, totally right, right. Absolutely. And I was, my message this week, certainly in my online communities, has been you can't heal a body you hate. You
Mm,
cannot heal a body you hate. And the having compassion for yourself, being able to focus on what you like and love about your body, that is, I found that to be really key. Gabriella, tell our audience where to find you, how to connect with you, and
mm.
also a little more on your hot documentary. I love
Yes,
calling it
yes,
that.
yes, yes. The hot documentary, yes. So, you can find me on Instagram at Gabriella Espinosa, my name. And my website is pleasureinthepause.com. You have there my coaching services, one to one, as well as group coaching. I have a uh, community group called the Midlife Pleasure Collective that you can join. And you have all the podcast episodes, including the one that I've had with you, which was so impactful. And the hot documentary you can find at, I'll give you the link for it because it's a little bit of a long URL, but it's the production team is called Milk House. So Milk House slash hot documentary. You can find out the production team. You can see a little teaser trailer of what we're getting up to in terms of the stories that we're sharing, and we've already started a a campaign for fundraising. So if you'd like to contribute, however small, however large, to the fundraising campaign, it is a grassroots effort, and we're going to be reaching out to everyone to join us in this effort of unsilencing pleasure, unsilencing sexuality for midlife women everywhere.
I love it. And you also have live events because you just did a vulvar vitality. What was the name of
Yes,
your event you
vulvar
just did?
vitality, my 6 steps to vulvar vitality, and you donated, you contributed with your products, which was so wonderful. Yeah, I sit with groups of women because I find research has been done, right? That when you gather with groups of women and you talk about pleasure, you talk about sexuality, you talk about the issues that are affecting this sense of vitality and aliveness, um, that women open up, they get raw, they get real. I have a doctor on board to help out with, the more medical aspects of what's changing, the constellation of symptoms, vaginal dryness, pain with intercourse, UTIs, all of those constellation of symptoms are real, and they are happening in real time to us, but there are solutions, right? I love the sexual wellness space, and you're a big part of that. There are solutions, lubes, vaginal moisturizers, uh, vibrators, infrared
Light,
technology.
yeah.
There's everything that can address this. And so I bring women together and teach them this very important information. So empowering yourself with knowledge is a big cornerstone of my work, and that's what I do. And I bring women together for vulva vitality workshops. I bring them together for workshops on how to tune into pleasure and sensate focus. So we do lots of embodiment practices. I love guiding women in those real life events. I usually invite people over to my home in Austin, and we do things there together. So yeah, you can go to my website, and I'll post about all the exciting events coming up.
That's awesome. I'm going to make it down there to one of them,
Yes, let's
Gabriella. I
do
definitely
it
want
together.
to.
We have to do one together. Yes, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love that. All right. To all our listeners, this is a community commitment to break the silence, right? To unsilence our conversations, to unsilence ourselves in this intimate conversations, to speak up, speak in our truth and authenticity. It's always, historically, prior to 2000 years ago, anyway, part of that, right? The red tent, women in community, the red rose lineage, really speaking our truth and passing this knowledge down from one person to another. Now, a lot of that has been silenced in intergenerationally, and it's time to unbreak that. You can ask my daughters, they probably wish that I was more silent. However, I'm not. And so, you guys, I encourage you to start having these conversations with your girlfriends, to be authentic and open. Know that there are solutions, right? There are solutions to this. And once you start having these conversations, you realize how empowering they are. That you're not alone, and we are here to help. Gabriella Espinosa with her work, pleasureinthepause.com. Of course, everything girlfriend doctor at dranna.com. We're here to help you. And the most important thing I want to hear from you, I want you to break, unsilence with me. Share with me a comment. You can always direct message me on social media. You can email team@drannakabeca.com, but you can comment below this podcast. So let me know, like, speak your truth. What are you, what have you been afraid to talk about that you want to share? You will realize you're not alone. We're here to help. And I look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. So please do all things, share this episode with your girlfriends. Share this episodes with the men, an important man in your life, or men in your life, important people in your life. It's share this so you can start having these conversations. You realize you're not alone. I thank you so much for being here, all of you. Thank you to my guest, Gabriella Espinosa. Maybe y'all will catch us in person together sometime in the near future. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Till next time, and God bless.
Thanks for watching another episode of the Girlfriend Doctor podcast. Check out all the links below for more.